Okay. How about now? Can you see it now? Still?
Yeah, everything's good.
Excellent. Okay, so let's get started. And this is week number 10. Welcome to Computer Apps for Media Production. Okay, so this is a very big week for us. This week we are going to be talking about After Effects. So if you don't know what After Effects is a visual effects and compositing program. When I say compositing, you can do all sorts of layered applications with videos. You can create motion graphics with it, dynamic text type presentations. It's really kind of runs the gamut of different things you can accomplish with After Effects. It is a very deep application. So some people spend some of or all of their career in working in After Effects primarily. It takes a while to learn. So in this class we're gonna scratch the surface of it, and I'm gonna show you some basics and hopefully give you the tools you need to explore further on your own. Okay, so let's do a rundown of our week here. So we're gonna start off and we're going to watch the first two sections of After Effects CC 2019 Essential Training Editors and Post. Let me open it up here real quick.
Frames in After Effects.
So I'm also going to highly recommend that you watch the introduction as well. So you got about an hour and a half worth of information to watch and to work through. Now I'm going to stress to everyone that you really need to watch and work through all of these exercises, and the reason why you probably will not be able to do, I'll say this, if you've never used After Effects before, you probably won't be able to do this week's assignment until you watch all of this. I'm not able to go over all of this today, so I'm going to assume that you have watched all of this, and then you're going to attempt the assignment afterwards. Okay, so with that said, let's go back to our rundown here. So I forgot to give you guys a quiz last week. I do have one for you this week. It's 15 questions, and it covers information presented in the After Effects training here. And then we're going to dive in and we're going to do a proof of concept. And it's going to be basically setting up a project, and we're going to create a small map, and we're going to animate it. So with that said, what I'm going to do is just hop into After Effects here, and let me show you what we're going to make. Okay, so that is it. It doesn't look like much. There's a lot going on here, though. The idea here is that we've all not been on campus in such a long time that I thought it would be good to have a map of the campus, and we're going to draw a route around the campus in which the areas that we're walking. And there was kind of some logic behind this. So everyone's going to start at the library. We're going to then walk over to the building where our department is, the NIMC building. We're going to walk through there. We're going to go, and then we're going to go through the student union, walk through the courtyard, walk out the door, and into the parking lot. And so the idea is this would be something that you would create to show someone the direction somewhere to get from point A to point B. You've seen this type of, I guess, graphic presentation done in like Indiana Jones. If you remember Indiana Jones, where they're flying across the Atlantic Ocean, they did one of these type of things with a map on it. It's a very scaled down version. Do you remember that, Phil?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so that's what we're doing.
They did it also in The Mummy also.
Yes. So let's start at the very beginning. And I'm going to just, well, first of all, walk you through the interface of After Effects, and then we're going to actually dive in and start up with this project. Okay, so first of all, what you're looking at right here is the basic layout of the application. Here in the very middle is your composition viewer. So this is where you're going to actually see what your current time indicator, which is the same as your playhead in Premiere. So your current time indicator, wherever it's at on your timeline here, is what shows in your composition viewer. So this down here, this complete section of the application is called your composition. And within your composition, you have layers. So much like we had tracks in Premiere Pro, we have layers in After Effects. Good way to think about After Effects, it's a combination of Photoshop and Premiere Pro. It's a very good analogy for that. If they had a baby, it would be After Effects. So let's move on, and I will give you just a few more things before we move on, and that is up here, this is your project panel. These are all of your assets that you can use within your After Effects project. And then over here on the right hand side, we have all of our effects and our presets. So those are the main areas that we're going to be working with today. One other thing though, we're going to be working with a few of these tools up here. So we have all sorts of different tools that do different things within the application and allow us to manipulate our images, and so we'll be working with these. Okay, let's get going. So first things first, in After Effects, there's no such thing as a sequence. There is a composition. So whenever you hear the word composition in After Effects, think sequence in Premiere Pro. So to make a new composition, I'm going to go up to Composition and select New Composition. And you're going to get a pop-up window. And a couple of things that you want to make sure to select. HD TV 1080 2997, so that's a high definition picture with a 16:9 aspect ratio with a frames per second rate of 29.9 seconds. If we round up, that's 30. And we're also going to go for a default duration of 30 seconds and 0 frames. So once we make sure all those are selected correctly, we're going to click OK, and you'll see a new tab pop up down here in your composition for the one that you just created. So each one of these down here are different compositions. Alright, so that's how we basically get set up and get going. Now I'm going to pop back over into Blackboard just for a second. One of the first things that you're going to need to do, I kind of jumped ahead just a moment, you're going to need to download the assets for this project. So click on this link, you're going to go to Google Drive, and you'll want to download this image, and you'll download this one as well. There's an optional piece of the assignment. If you want to do it, you can do this. It's not required, but this is a little icon that we're going to use to help guide the way when we animate our little walking path through the campus. So, assuming that everyone has done that, we're going to go back into After Effects, and I have already imported this into After Effects. So it is right here. Actually, no, it's not. I told you wrong there. It's this one right here. So what I'm going to do is this. Real quick, to import into After Effects, you just go File, Import, File, then select the files that you want to import. And when you do, they'll show up here in your project panel. So I'm going to take our image that we're going to work with. and I'm just going to drag it down here into our composition, and I'm just going to let it go. And you'll notice that wherever my cursor was when I let it go, it put it right there in the timeline, so it overshot it just a little bit. I'm going to bring it back to the beginning. So this is our image that we're working with. You can see that the image itself is not quite big enough to fill the frame of our complete composition. So what we need to do is this. We first need to scale this up. And to do that, we're going to, with our layer clicked right here, we're going to twirl down, and I have some transform properties that I can manipulate. What I'm going to do is under our scale, I'm just going to scale this up just a little bit. And then I'm going to click in here and just reposition just a bit too, just so we can see all of the area that we're going to be working with. So that's step number one. Once you get your...
Okay, well, it looked like it froze there because I didn't see you doing any action.
Oh, it did freeze. Okay, I'm sorry. Let me just take a look here at our bandwidth. Okay, so it says that I'm got a lot of bandwidth going up right now, and it looks like you're got quite a bit as well. Can you see my cursor moving right now?
No, I cannot.
All right, let me pause the recording for 1 second. Okay, we are back after a temporary internet issue. Hopefully it's resolved now. And so continuing on with our project. So we have our campus map. And now once we have the campus map, what we'll need to do is actually draw a path that will represent our little foot traffic, or our walking path that we're going to actually take along the campus here. So real quick, the way you draw a path is this. I'm going to make sure and click off of my layer here. And the reason I want to do that is because I'm going to be using this pen tool right here. And if I happen to have this clicked, it will perform a different function than I want it to right now. So I'm going to click off the layer, click on the pen tool, and I'm going to set up what I want it to look like before I actually start drawing. So under fill, I don't want any type of fill, because essentially this pen tool can be used to make shapes. And the shape that we're going to make is just a line that segments along. It's not going to be a closed polygon or anything like that. So we need to turn the fill off. And the way you do that is that you hold down the Alt key and you just click, and you click through until you see the diagonal red line go through the fill box. That's how you know it's off. Now from there we need to make our stroke, and that is the actually outline of the line. So it is possible to draw this line and have nothing show up on screen unless you actually make the stroke of your path somewhat wide. So I'm going to choose a path width of 15 pixels. So that is your stroke. Alright, so now you'll notice that on my cursor it looks like a pen now, and it also has a star next to it. So what that means is that this pen tool is going to create a shape, or it's in shape mode when I use it. And I'll show you the other mode that it can be in just a little bit. So we know that we're going to be drawing a shape by that star, and I'm going to start here at the library. What I'm going to do is just going to left click and make a point. And then I'm going to come around, make another point. Every time I click, it makes another point, and it automatically fills in the stroke width of 15 pixels with the color red that was the default. Now just so everyone can see okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in on this a bit. Now I'm going to run into an issue here in just a moment. and that is I need to be able to move this up a little bit so everyone can see it, but I can also do this as well. I can modify how much real estate this composition area is taking up. So come down here, I can drop this down a bit so I can have some more room. And then I can also come up here, and you'll notice I still have my pen tool selected. I'm going to select away from that for a moment and select my hand tool. I'm just going to bring this up. All it's doing is moving what I'm actually able to see here in the picture. Okay, so now that I'm happy with that, I click back on my pen tool. I'm going to make sure that that's selected. I come over here and I click it once just to make sure that that my path is selected, otherwise it will draw a new path for me. And then I'm going to click again. And you can see that I am now creating my path. So I'm going to go in one door of the NIMC building, come out another door. Just going to draw a path here. Go around, try to stay off the grass. It's kind of an exercise in just learning how to draw.
I like walking across the grass now.
Oh man. Grab my hand tool again, come up, you know, tiptoe through the tulips there. Okay, so I'm going to select my pen tool again, come in and just click on the last point that I created, come through here, and then I'm going to come around here. Now here's something new. After you've done this 10 or 12 times like this, what you'll do next is I've just been clicking and letting go, and every time I click and let go you get a linear point, and it's going to connect these in a very rigid fashion. When I click and left click and hold, and while I'm still holding, if I drag out, this point turns into a Bezier curve. And so that allows us some additional I guess finesse with this path where we can actually create some curves. So I can come here, and then I can come here, and then I'm going to, I think in this one we come out through the courtyard, and then we go back into this door, and then we come out of another door here. Okay, I'm going to go back over and grab my hand tool again so I can move, and then go back and click my pen, and we'll end somewhere about right here. So that is how you draw a path. I'm going to pause here for a second and ask, what questions do you have?
Now, when it's going through that building, that red line will disappear, right?
Yes, so that's one of the steps that we're going to tackle here in just a minute. So, but yeah, that's a good call. So we're not walking on top of the building, we're walking through the building. So yep. So basically what we're going to do now is this. We're going to look at what we've created, and in our path here you notice that we have a cutoff end here, and all of the corners are very sharp. We can do a little bit to make that look a little bit more pleasing, and the way we do that is we come in here, and you'll notice that also we have a new layer here in our composition, and it's called Shape Layer 1, and that is our path. So I can twirl down and go into Contents. There's our shape. Twirl down and go into Stroke, and I have a line cap, and by default it's called butt cap. Well, that's kind of a funny name. we're going to select round cap. And when I do, you'll notice that that went from a squared off end to a nice curved end. And then for our line joints, by default they're miter joint. We're going to select round joint. And I don't know if that's coming through on your end, Phil, but they actually are a little curved now. So
Just slightly curved.
yep. So if I come in a little more, you can see it a little better. I'm going to go back out. Yeah. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom back out, and the way I'm going to do that is click Control and the minus button. And I can just grab my hand tool again and recenter, and that is the path that we are taking through campus. So the next thing we need to do is actually animate our path. We need to actually make it go from point A to point B. And what I'm going to suggest is you use an animation time of about 12 to 14 seconds. That seems to flow about right. So the way we're going to do that is this. Now you notice that I'm trying to come over here and click on my layer and actually manipulate it, but I can't because my hand tool is selected right now. You see my cursor looks like a hand. So I have to come back up here and select my, I guess this is called the selection tool. And now I can actually click and manipulate. Okay, so the next thing I'm concerned with is something called a trim path. So what I need to do is this. I actually have to add this functionality into this layer. And the way I do that is this. I come in and I click the play button next to the add, and it's going to give me some choices. We're going to select trim paths. And when I do, you'll see that I have a new item down here under my contents, and I'm going to work with the end point. And right now it's set to 100%. I'm going to just click on this and scroll left, and as I do, you'll notice that it's going, I can go left and right to make it disappear or go all the way on. So we're going to animate this property over about 12 to 14 seconds, and it will create the effect of us walking through the campus. Okay, so I'm going to go back to 100. I'm going to go up to about 1 second within my composition. So I'm going to put my current time indicator on 1 second. And I'm going to click the stopwatch next to end to set a keyframe. I'm then going to set this to 0. So, but you can also just click in on the number and it will highlight it to where you can actually type in a number. I'll type in 0 and it will go all the way down for me. And now you see I have a keyframe. Now what I can do is come up to, let's try this at 13 seconds. Now the moment I actually modify this end value of 0%, it will create a new keyframe for me right here on my composition timeline. So I'm going to bring that up to 100. I'm going to come back here to our 0 time, and I'm going to press my space bar for play. Okay, and so that took me through campus. Let me pause there for one moment and ask, what questions do you have?
Didn't see any questions that I can think of right now.
Cool. All right, we're on to a good start. Okay, so once we get a path in there and we get it animated, we have to address the issue of, well, our path is just going straight over these buildings, and it doesn't really look like we're walking through the building. So how do we fix that? So the answer to that is another function within After Effects that's used quite frequently, and that's called a mask. So we hit on mask just a little bit in Premiere Pro. We'll use them quite a bit in After Effects. So the way we're going to do this is that we're going to actually make a copy of our map, and we're going to draw some mask on the copy of our map, and it's going to allow us to put these cut out copies of these buildings on top of the original layer, and it's going to basically just cover up our red line for us. So the way that's going to happen is this. I'm going to select my image, and a shortcut to duplicate something in After Effects is Control D. I believe it's Option D if you're on a Mac. And you'll notice that every time I hit Control D, I get a new layer. So I only need one, so I'm going to just highlight these and just press my delete button to get rid of them. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually select, my computer had to think there for a second, I'm going to select this bottom layer and I'm going to bring it on top. You'll notice that our path went away, and I don't see anything. It's because we're looking at a solid layer on top of everything else.
Yeah.
So what we need to do is we actually need to make a cutout now, and you can think about this like if it was a sheet of paper, you're going to cut it out with scissors. We're going to make a cutout for this building, and then we're also going to make a cutout for this building down here. So it's whenever you're going to mask something, it's always advisable to zoom in on it as much as you can. And it may look like the quality goes down, but it's okay because you're just actually manipulating. This is not your final output. You're just manipulating what you see on screen here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go back up to our pen tool. Now we used this before to make a shape, but because we have a layer selected now that is not a shape layer, so we have actual asset selected. When I click on my pen tool, I come down here and you notice that I have my pen icon again, but I don't have the star anymore. It's a square with a circle in it. So that lets me know that I'm going to be making a mask instead of a shape layer. So the easiest way to do this is just to come in and just trace around the building. I don't have to get all of it, and it doesn't have to be perfect. And actually, I'm going to want to trace on the very bottom edge here. So you got to think about what's going to actually be seen. Now, as soon as I click right here, you're going to probably see our path return if it were actually on screen. It wasn't at the right spot there. So you can look at this as a cutout that's directly on top of the building there, and I'm going to click the eyeball icon right here on the lower left of the timeline, and what it will turn that off for me so I can toggle on and off. And if I want to, I can actually take my selection tool and I can show you that this is just a copy of my building there. Just going to click undo till it goes back, and that's how we create a mask. Okay, so that's mask number 1, and now we need to go, and I'm going to select my hand tool and come over here. We're going to need to mask over here, so we'll just by default, whenever you draw a mask, it's going to add anything inside that mask. It's going to add back to your picture. And so as soon as I completed that, as soon as I connected all of the dots and made a complete, I guess, polygon there, completed the mask, it added it back in. So now
I do the courtyard with that.
So that is the next piece of it, right? Okay, so let's come up here and I'm going to control and then minus a couple times just to see more of our image here. Hand tool just to bring it back. I'm gonna stop saying hand tool and selection tool. I just want to let you know that there's some shortcuts that you can use. So if you press the V key, it will select the hand tool for you. If you select the H key, it's the hand tool. So V and H, you'll use those quite a bit. Remember those. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to go in, and you'll notice that I now have a mask layer in this campus image. So I can twirl down here, and you'll see that I have two masks. And by default, they are in add mode. So they're going to add back anything within the mask. So to accommodate the courtyard, here's what we're going to do. We're going to draw another mask around the courtyard. And once you have it drawn, you can manipulate the actual lines a little bit if you need to clean it up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go from add mode to subtract mode. And when I do, you'll notice that we now go through the courtyard out into the parking lot. Alright, so let's pause there for a second and let's just take a look at it. And I can come up here, and this shows me what I'm currently looking at percentage wise at the image. I'm looking at it at a 25% scale. I'm just going to click on fit. So that's going to show me as big of an image as it can to show me the whole screen within the space that I have. So I'm going to press the space bar. Now we need some cool Indiana Jones music behind there. Alright. Okay. So we went to the library. We went through the RTVF department. We stopped and we'll say we went through the student union, grabbed a cup of coffee, walked through the courtyard, said hello to somebody out the front door, and then into the parking lot. That's our mission there, right? Okay, so let's go back to, and here's another thing before I forget. I'm going to say press Control S often, or Option S if you're on a Mac. That's going to save your project. So whenever you create a new project, opening After Effects up for the first time, name it and press Control S often. Because it would be really bad to get in an hour and a half, 2 hours into this and then it just crash on you. Okay, I'm going to minimize this for a moment. We're going to look at our... Okay, so we are right here within our tutorial. I'm going to show you the optional piece to this. So if you want, you can actually add a location marker to this and have it animate in much the same way. So here's how to do that. So I have the location marker already in here. If I double click on it, when I double click on something, you'll notice that I have two tabs up here. So this is the viewer for the asset. And so it looks like absolutely nothing. What it is, it's actually a PNG image with a transparency on it. So it's a black outline on a black background though, right there. That's why you can't see anything. When I take this and I'm just going to drag it and release it right here, you see that I now have my location marker. So you got to think a little bit about how easy it is to see certain things, and black might get a little lost, and I'd like to make this the same color as my path here. The way to do that is come up in here to your effects and presets, and I'm going to use my search menu here, and it will ease this greatly instead of actually trying to you can go through and twirl all these down and find what you're looking for, but there are quite a few effects and it will take you forever. So I'm going to search for tint, and it will, everything that has the word tint in it, it will bring up for you. I'm going to just select tint, and you'll notice that as I drag it here in the composition, it's going to highlight different things that I can actually apply it to. I want to apply it to this. Optionally, I could drag it and release it right here. I'm going to let it go right here. And it doesn't do anything yet. But you come up here into where your project panel was. It now brings up an effects control panel for you. And it's going to ask you a question, basically. It's going to map your black to, and right now black is mapped to black, and white is mapped to white. So I need to remap my black to red. The way I'm going to do that is I'm going to click this eyedropper, and I want it to be the same color as this, and it automatically makes it red for me. All right. One other thing that I'm looking at, it's still a little hard to see, especially I think after we shrink it down. What I'm going to do is put a drop shadow on this. So I'm just going to type in drop shadow. You'll notice I have this effect, and I can drop it right here, and immediately I get a drop shadow. So I can manipulate this a little bit if I want to. I can manipulate the distance, the softness, and the opacity. I'm going to make it pretty hard. Well, let's go with something like that for right now. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to do before I actually start working with this, I'm going to scale it down. So I'm going to come in here to my location PNG, twirl down transform, and I have a scale option here. I'm going to make it about that big. Alright, so now we got two options, two things we could do here. We could come through and make a brand new path for this all the way through from point A to point B, and then go from point A to point B, and then make a brand new path for it. Sorry, one of my children came in, they needed to tell me something.
Yep.
Okay, but we're not going to do that. That would take forever, and it would most likely get off at some point. So we're going to actually copy the information that we made when we created the new path, or this first path, to put on this icon right here to make it follow. So the way we're going to do that is this. We're going to come in.
You're going to do like keyframes.
I'm going to, essentially yes, but let me show you where to get those. So we're going to come in here into shape 1, and under path, I'm going to click on the path itself. So it's not good enough just to click on this. You actually have to go in and click on the path. You'll notice that it highlighted for me right here. Okay, so I'm going to Control C to copy. And then what I'm going to do here is actually come back and go to my location, and I'm going to scroll down here, and I'm going to paste that information into the position. So I need to highlight the position, paste. When I did that, you see all these keyframes that just popped up right here?
I'm not seeing them.
Okay.
Hold on. Let me make sure I'm my. Oh, okay, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, now I see it. I forgot I had my thing zoomed
Oh,
in so I could see it a little better.
okay. Excellent.
Oh, my bad.
Okay. So you notice that, okay, now this icon follows the path directly. However, the timing is wrong. So we need to fix that. So the way we fix that is that we're going to actually come in and we need to go back to our shape layer where the original path is, and we need to get right on the keyframe to where our animation begins. And it looks like I am right on it. Okay, good. I'm going to zoom back out. I'm going to come back here to my, I'm going to do this. It's going to make it a little easier to work with. So where my current time indicator right now is right on the keyframe that I need to go to. So I'm going to come in here and go to my position. I'm going to highlight all of the keyframes, and I'm going to just click and then drag the beginning over here. Okay, so now the animation is starting where it needs to start. Okay, but the ending is not correct. So what I can do is this. I can click on the very end keyframe, come over here and get right on the ending keyframe and scale this out. You'll notice that everything stays in the same order and scales in relation to one another. So now, and you'll notice that I have this gray outline. If I want to not see that, what I can do is just click away. Now if I play, so my icon stays right with me here. Okay, so we need to do a couple of more things. And one is we need to really make it to where the point of this icon is right at the very edge or right at the very end of this line. The way we're going to do that is modify the anchor point. By default, the anchor point is in the center. So we need to modify that. So I'm going to just make this to where I can see it a bit better. And I'm going to twirl down, come into my anchor point, and I'm just going to shift it up a bit. So now this will stay right where it needs to be. And the other thing we need to do is actually make it to where this icon disappears when we go into the buildings. And a very easy way to do that is just to actually put our masked layers right on top. So it's going to go underneath the mask now as well. Alright, let's zoom back out. Okay. So, questions so far?
So far I'm getting it.
Excellent.
Now, is there like a way to solid up that icon, or is it going to be like that?
It's going to be like that. I mean, if you want to, you can draw your own shape and do that as well. I just went on the internet and found one like that. And so right here, you know, we're having a little bit of an issue. Right here, it's, you know, getting covered up by the mask a little bit. That's not a huge thing. It's just the idea is that we're learning how to take path information and put it on a different object. Okay, so there's where we're at. We could stop there, but we're going to make this just a little bit better. And what we're going to do is this. I'm going to click Save first of all. And we're going to actually zoom this in just a little bit or scale it up to where we can follow this path and see everything more clearly. So the way we're going to do that is this. I'm going to just zoom out just a little bit. We're going to use a method called pre-comping, or making a pre-composition. So I'm going to select all of my layers, and essentially we're going to turn all of these layers into one single layer that is its own composition. So the way you do that is go up to go to Layer, Pre-compose, and then you're going to get a question. Whenever you make a pre-composition, you always get a question. It's going to ask you if you want to leave the attributes, and in this case it's not available, or you want to move all attributes. In most situations, you're going to move all attributes. There's a few advanced techniques in which you would want to leave your attributes, but we're going to move attributes. Okay. So you'll notice that all of my layers that I did have now been squished down into one composition. If I click on it, double click on it, I get everything back, and you'll notice that it's now in pre-comp. Its composition is now in pre-comp 1. I'm going to just X that out. And when I did that, what that allows me to do is I can make a modification to this now, such as the scale, and it modifies everything. Whereas before, if I were just to modify the scale of this, the map, let's say, I'm going to undo this after I do it, you'll notice that everything breaks. Nothing works anymore.
Yeah.
So I'll make it a pre-composition, and I can modify everything. So I'm going to go up to 200%. And I'm going to click on my position, and now what I'm doing is I'm actually moving around what's going to be in the frame. So what you see right here, what's visible, is what actually is going to be in the finished video. So I probably want to start it about right here. So we're going to come over here. Maybe I'm just thinking about where I want the animation to begin. So maybe start here. We'll walk through the building and come out, and then as we come out of the building, that's when I'm going to start animating and walking basically with this character, have it go up the screen so we can see where it's going. So I'm going to do some position keyframes. I'm going to click on my stopwatch and my position attribute. I'm going to go forward, and then with my stopwatch selected and my position attribute selected, as soon as I move, I get a new keyframe. So let's see how it did here. Probably needs to be a bit faster to move it, make it faster. I just move it in. Okay, so we're going to come to here. Maybe we'll put a new keyframe there, and then we will start to animate again once we get over here. And then put a new keyframe here, and then start to animate again once we get over here. So this is what we wind up with. Okay. That is essentially the proof of concept this week. So we dove into the basics of After Effects. We learned how to make a path. We learned how to make some masks. We learned how to animate a path. Take that path information and put it onto another object. And also we can now make our own Indiana Jones opening sequence if we want to. So how about that? Now,
Yeah.
last thing we got to do is we have to render this. So in After Effects, we don't export, we render. So that's a key distinction there. I had to stop the video just for a moment because we had to make a quick edit on how we were going to export this. So here are the instructions. So if you looked at the module before we actually had the class meeting today, the instructions have changed just a little bit. Be sure to check them for this change. So the render output that we're going to use for this project is Apple ProRes 422 LT. So this is a production codec, and it will create a somewhat small file size, relatively speaking, that we can work with. Okay, so what we're going to do is this. We're going to use Apple ProRes 422 LT, and let me show you how we actually render this. So again, in After Effects, we render. We do not output. So we're going to render. So I select Composition, Add to Render Queue. And from there, what I'm going to do where it says Output Module, I'm going to click on Lossless. And I'm going to start at Format. So I click on Format, I come down, I'm going to select QuickTime. So I select on QuickTime, then I'm going to select Format Options. Now this is important that you do this step right here. They're all important, but this one, if you don't unselect or select the correct codec, if you just left it on animation, your total video would probably be a couple gigabytes, I would guess. It'd be very huge. So we're going to select a codec of Apple ProRes 422 LT. That is our codec. We're going to select OK. And then from there, we're going to select OK. And the next thing we have to select is where do we want to output this file to. So we're going to select here. And I'm just going to put this in my folder that I've been working with for this project. And I'm going to call this, I'll give it a file name of maproot. Okay, I'm going to save that. Okay, I got that saved, and then all that's left to do is select the render button. And you'll see that you'll get a real-time update of it creating your video for you. So you get to watch it, you get to watch the magic happen. And have several seconds of just video at the end, since we made this a default of 30 seconds. And that sound right there, what you just heard, that is how you know your render is done. it's a very unique sound, only to After Effects. Okay, so that is the assignment for this week. Once you have it rendered out, I'm going to navigate to it real quick and show you one last thing. And here is our map route, and I'm just going to try to open this up. And you're going to see that you can't play it. And the reason why is that because After Effects is designed to create videos that you don't hand off immediately to a customer or upload directly to the internet. It's meant to be creating a video that you then use in some other fashion in a production. So by default, Windows cannot play ProRes 422 files because it's not part of Windows Media or Windows Media Player. If you're on a Mac, you should be able to play it. However, what you can do, though, in either case, you can go into Premiere. You can play it in Premiere Pro. And once it's open for me, I'm just going to make a new project. I don't really care about any of the settings. That's fine. And I'm just going to double click into my project panel, and I'm going to navigate to select my map route, and it came in with no problem, and there is my video that I made. And there it is. So I'm going to look at one thing. I'm going to right click here and I want to look at the properties of my video. You'll notice that it is a whopping 365 megabytes. We are not going to be able to upload that to Blackboard. The file size is just way too big for that. So we're going to have to export this as an H.264 file from Premiere Pro. Not a big deal. The way we're going to do that is go to File, and at this point we're going to export. And you will do this just like you did your other projects for this class. So you'll just basically leave it as H.264. And again, I like the preset YouTube 1080 Full HD. And then I'm going to leave it the name that it was, and you'll notice it's .mp4 now. Export. Takes just a moment. The speed in which it'll do it for you is dependent upon how fast your computer is. So yours may be faster, maybe slower than mine. No biggie, it should work. I'm just going to go navigate to where it's at. And here is my video, and now I should be able to open it. Success! Once you get here, you can pat yourself on the back because you have now successfully completed your first After Effects project. So thank you everyone for listening today. Please contact me if you have any questions whatsoever, and I hope everyone has a good week.